We'd like to particularly thank the small number of TDs and senators who have come together from across the parties and independents who are determined to create change, not in 10 or 15 or 20 years' time, but within the term of this Dáil, if that's possible to do. So we'd like to thank those politicians, but we need more of them on board. And we would encourage you, wherever you are in the country, to contact your local TDs and let them know that this exists. This is a milestone. Never before has the stories of mothers, uncensored, been brought to the ears and the eyes of the people in this country. I hope, and Anna hopes, that this book becomes standard reading for all social workers in college when they're studying, all applied social care workers, all politicians, anybody who has any influence or works in the field into the future needs to read this book. This is not opinions from me, it's not opinions from Anna. This is the experience of those mothers. Most of all, we want to thank those mothers. We have been contacted over the years by hundreds of mothers who've got similar stories. Most of them petrified to say anything, even under the promise of anonymity. The 20 mothers that agreed to do this are some of the bravest women in this country, because they are still, although they're covered and they can't be identified, every morning they're waking up and they think, I hope nobody figures out that was me in that book, because of the fear that they have of being taken to court and being jailed for actually telling their story. So, in terms of what 𝐸 has become, a lot of people would like to infer that this is just a few bad apples. Now, my academic career is focused on organisational cultures and how to change them. And bad apples become rotten barrels of apples if it isn't addressed. That's the reality. We're long past the point of having a few bad apples. The barrel is now completely rotten. You can smell the alcohol coming from it. It's so rotten at this stage. So something has to be done. People have to stand up. The mothers themselves cannot stand up. And that's the key problematic that we have. Some of the bravest women in the country, as far as I'm concerned. In terms of the contents of this book, it's hard reading. It's easy reading from the point of view. It's not fancy. This isn't from an academic. This is the mother's own words. So it's not fancy reading, but it's hard reading because the stories that come out here. Imagine you dropped your children to school one morning, not knowing anything was going on behind the scenes, and you went to pick them up that evening and were told that they're gone. They're in care. They've been moved down to the other end of the country. Because parental alienation, it's touched on in this book. The biggest alienators are actually 𝐸. When your child is taken into care, they will do everything to ensure that your relationship is destroyed with that child. They will move the child as far away as possible so that you can't see them. They will limit the communication. If you as a mother express your emotional concern to your child, you're seen as emotionally abusing your child. So the stories in here are very hard to read, but we all have to read them because it's happening to your neighbours. You don't know about it. It's happening to sometimes even your sister, your cousin, and we don't know about it because they can't even, by law, speak to their family about what's going on. So this book is a key milestone because it's the first time that their collective stories has been presented in any format that's accessible to the general public. We make no money whatsoever from this book. It cost €8, and that's the publishing cost of this book. We wanted to ensure that nobody could ever accuse us of trying to profit off the hurt and the pain the mothers have felt in the past. I want to just, again, because this focuses on the mothers itself, I'd just like to read a few short extracts myself to give you an idea about what these women and so many hundreds more women around the country are going through as we speak. I'd like to speak about Roseanne and her experience of having her child taken off her. So this is just a bit of information about Roseanne first. 𝐸 obtained an emergency court order to remove Roseanne's children because of her husband's mental health difficulties. She was not told about the hearing. The first she knew of it was when social workers and Gardaí arrived at her door. And these are the words of Roseanne. That morning, my partner had a meeting with social workers. The receptionist told him that they were going to court for an emergency order. It was ex parte, which means they weren't going to tell the mother. I knew nothing about it. They arrived at my house just after 4 p.m. The screams of the children, I'll never forget. My eldest kept saying, I'm sorry for being bold. She lost so much weight and care that one guard even apologised to me. This happened 9 years ago and I still wake up with nightmares. Another mother called Clara. Clara came to Ireland from the United Kingdom after testifying in court against a dangerous criminal. Within days, Gardaí were at her home. Her children were taken 3 times, always by the Gardaí, often while she was in custody on what turned out to be flimsy grounds. These are the words of Clara. The first time I was detained for a supposed motoring offence. While I was in custody, they went to the children's school and took them without question. I later appealed to the circuit court. The judge ordered they be returned to me within 4 days. 𝐸 could not produce any evidence of child protection issues. The second time, they detained me again, and months later admitted it was an error. No apology. They kept my eldest daughter in foster care and later targeted the younger 2, taking them from school in full view of friends and family. 5 guards surrounded my car, making my children sob before driving them away. Each time, they were fine until the moment the Gardaí arrived. Then the trauma began. This is Chrissy's story. Chrissy is a grandmother who stepped in to support her daughter and grandchildren, one of whom was seriously ill. Social workers removed the children from the garden while they played and later took the sick child too as soon as the medical crisis had passed. These are the words of Chrissy. Social workers came in the afternoon while the children were happily playing in the garden with friends. They took them against their will, crying and screaming. The social workers told me to lie, to say that they were going away for a little while, and I refused. They left the sick grandchild with me. I nursed the child through multiple operations. As soon as that child recovered fully, 𝐸 came and took that child too, placing them in foster care. In terms of when a mother informs services or informs the Gardaí that their child has been sexually abused by their partner, again we see this issue of allegations of parental alienation. This is May's story. May was in an abusive marriage marked by domestic violence and coercive control. After the relationship ended, one of her children disclosed that she'd been sexually abused by her father. May did what was responsible, or a responsible parent would do. She contacted 𝐸 and the Gardaí. Her children were later taken into state care. Maeve says, "My daughter made 11 disclosures of sexual abuse, and the very first one I rang 𝐸 and I could not get them. I could not get them for a week, and they never got back to me. I phoned the Gardaí, and that was delayed as well, and they didn't do anything for the whole while. 𝐸 was getting disclosures through other agencies like refuges, and they still were ignoring me. They just wanted to talk about my husband's concerns about my mental health. They did not want to talk about the sexual abuse at all. The police took a statement from me, but would not interview my daughter. 𝐸 lied and said that I was not engaging when I was the one who went to them. So the police said I was not engaging too. Finally, it came to a very serious last disclosure. I emailed the chief executive and I said this has been outrageous, and that when they called to my door and came on board, still saying that I was not engaging. It appears the 11th disclosure was so bad that they had to cover their tracks and say that I was not engaging, when in actual fact I had met them with my aunt and my adult son, with them knowing that they would blame me. I had been following in the media a lot of mums being blamed for different things, so I went with other people to meet them, and they still said I was not engaging. Court case after court case took place where they said I was not engaging. Then I fell ill and was not in court on one day. I sent an email and a doctor's certificate to the court. That was when they came that night and took my children. They came with a people carrier and 10 Gardaí with stab vests and surrounded the house. 𝐸 had been to my house the day before the court and were sitting in my sitting room talking to me, and they still went in and told the judge that I was not engaging. Every effort was made not to see the children on their part and blame me for not engaging. This is how they took them into care. Now in May's story we see that the pattern that appears throughout the chapter: repeated disclosures from a child, repeated attempts by the mother to engage services, and an official narrative that paints her as the problem and uses that narrative to justify the removal of her children. Now, sometimes we would get responses, that these are rare cases. This is a very unusual thing. When you interview 20 mothers and all their stories are exactly the same in terms of manipulation of information, fabrication of information, about pathological behaviour, manipulating on Gardaí Síochána, manipulating the courts, telling blatant lies, and because they have a master's degree in social work, they cannot be questioned as far as most judges are concerned. bringing in non-clinical psychologists. So let's talk about the difference between somebody who's just come out of college, having studied 3 years in psychology, and a clinical psychologist. That's okay, Chris. A lot of these professionals that have been taken into court did 3 years in college studying psychology, but they have no actual experience other than reading books. If you're a clinical psychologist, it means that you went into different clinical settings under senior psychologists and studied with them for maybe 4 or 5 years. It's not clinical psychologists that have been used in the course. It's young people coming in that 𝐸 know they're desperate for a wage. We'll get them to say anything that we want them to say, and they will do it. And then when they have 1 or 2 psychologists that they know will always go along with it, they're their preferred choice every time. If a mother decides, I'm going to bring in my own independent psychologist and try to have that information submitted to the court, they're denied the right to do so, when they're actually bringing in an actual clinical psychologist and proper professionals. So this book, for the first time, strips away the bullshit, strips away the lies, and reveals to this entire country what's going on in 𝐸. And it's not going to get any better until people read this book. It's €8. You can scan it on a barcode outside. I think there's a barcode here. I would encourage everybody to do it. We want this to be sitting in every house in Ireland, so that everybody knows what's going on and something can be done about it. Because most politicians find this very discomforting and they don't want to get involved. It's not a nice. We prefer to talk about the new building that we're opening, the new ship that we're launching, but we don't want to deal with the nitty-gritty. Well, it needs to be dealt with. On a final note, I'd like to really thank Anna Kavanagh for her application, her diligence over the last 4 years, and especially with the creation of the podcast, which this book comes from those podcasts. The work that she's done, the negative responses that she gets from people who are biased and partisan, who attack her online for the work that she's doing, but she continues and she persists, and I think she really does deserve a round of applause. So, okay, now I'm going to pass it back over to Anna now.
Thank you for watching. Please like and share.